3 years ago today, the World Cup reminded us why we love this tournament, why we love this game so much. It was Argentina and France in the final, and this thing just refused to end quietly. You had momentum swings. Argentina looked like the best team you'd ever seen in the first half. France looked terrible. Adjustments from Didier Deschamps. Second half, Kylian Mbappe puts the team on his back. You had extra time that was the greatest extra time period that we've ever seen in the game. It looked like Messi had the match winner. Then France found a way. Then it looked like France was going to win it in stoppage time, and Dibu Martinez made the most amazing save you'll see with the highest stakes. Then it goes to a penalty shootout, and Dibu does what Dibu does, and Argentina ends up making Lionel Messi the GOAT. They give him that World Cup that he had been missing for so long. Just unbelievable, and it was 3 years ago today. That 2022 final, that's the standard. That was the sport at its most dramatic, its most human, its most unforgettable. The game never stops. Neither do we. Welcome to the SDH Network. We're always around the corner from everywhere, including history. And it's time for another edition of the Morning Espresso, brought to you by Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. Let's start in England, where Enzo Maresca has become the center of attention. The noise around him has gotten a little bit louder and maybe a little more serious. According to David Ornstein at The Athletic, Maresca is among the names Manchester City are considering should Pep Guardiola step away next summer. Guardiola's under contract through 2027, but there is a growing anticipation around England that this could be his final season at the Etihad. This isn't panic. This is planning on Manchester City's side. They're doing what top clubs do. They're thinking 2-3 steps ahead. Guardiola has historically made his decisions about coming back for another year pretty late. He's also publicly said that he plans to take a break when he leaves Manchester City. So if you're in the City hierarchy, you don't want to wait for certainty. You need to be prepared in case that happens. Maresca fits the obvious way here. He knows the club. He coached the U21s. He worked as a first-team assistant. His style, his philosophy, his principles align closely with Guardiola and what he's done at the club since creating the City way of playing. He's not an outsider. He's a familiar option. He's got a modern profile. I think he's done really, really well at Chelsea and has developed. He did really well at Manchester City, obviously, before that. But his development at Chelsea has been outstanding. I was skeptical at first. He showed what he could do in the Club World Cup last year. He has shown what he can do with a team that has, I think, a lot of really good talent, but maybe not that over-the-top superstar. At least he hasn't had him a whole lot this year in Cole Palmer. He's done a lot with this group at Chelsea, and this is where it gets interesting on that side of it. He's under contract with the Blues until 2029, option year beyond that. That's the kind of contract you want if you're Chelsea. Gives you stability. But we know, in reality, it doesn't work out that cleanly. His recent comments during the build-up to the Everton match about it being the worst 48 hours of his tenure raised a lot of eyebrows. He didn't elaborate, and maybe we didn't necessarily know what he was getting at until now. You add in his recent switch to Jorge Mendes as an agent, and Maresca is standing in the middle of this very familiar tension point, and Chelsea's been in this spot before. It's a long-term contract. You got a demanding fan base. You're not getting as much support from the club as you like. And you've got another elite club that is interested in you and maybe somehow making sure you know how much they appreciate you. Doesn't mean he's leaving. It doesn't mean that Pep leaves in the summer. It doesn't mean that City's calling tomorrow. All of this is just going to be in the background now. It does tell you that Enzo Maresca has moved up a level to the top tier of managerial conversation. That will have an impact on how the rest of the season goes for Chelsea, for City, for everybody else around the Premier League and beyond. Let's go to Qatar. Paris Saint-Germain, they just keep on collecting trophies. They won the FIFA Intercontinental Cup, defeating Flamengo on penalties after a 1-1 draw. Really impressive shootout from Matvey Safonov, the Russian goalkeeper. 4 penalty saves. 4. That's never happened before in a FIFA competition. 4. Now, some of them weren't the most difficult saves, but it's about how he prepared. The image that's iconic already is a towel covered in handwritten notes about Flamengo shooters, preferred sides, tendencies, all of that. He has to make the saves, but his group, his goalkeeper coach, the staff, the work that was put in, and his execution, that's a snapshot of what PSG is. This is a PSG club that for the longest time was a wannabe Galacticos kind of situation. Star power. Every star you could get. Bring them to Paris. And that took you to a point. It got you to a Champions League final. It was pretty good, but it didn't win. Luis Enrique has made the collective the star. And I think this shows you the other element of it, the attention to detail. I talked about it ahead of the Miami game in Club World Cup. Now, it got glossed over because PSG won pretty big in that game. But go back to the set piece goal that they scored early that helped put it away. When we watched training the day before up at Kennesaw State, the attention to detail on a very hot Saturday afternoon, I can't remember. I think it was a Saturday afternoon. Very hot day, and a very tired team at this point who had played all the way through, had won Champions League, and was now in this tournament and going into the knockout rounds. The attention to detail that Luis Enrique and his staff had on the way they wanted set pieces delivered, the movement they wanted off the ball, the ways that they wanted multiple diversions in the routines, it was so impressive to watch a master at work. And attention to detail is why PSG is still, until they lose one of these titles that they've claimed, everything but the Club World Cup, till they lose one, they're the best. And we'll see if they can defend their Champions League title. That's going to be the big one coming up later this year. Flamengo made them work. They were very good. Felipe Luis admitted as much, and as did Luis Enrique. Flamengo was very good, but PSG dictated the rhythm. They didn't look rattled. They looked a little. The urgency kicked in when Flamengo tied it, but PSG was the better team, and Flamengo could not handle it in the penalties. PSG only the third club ever to sweep all the domestic trophies and the Champions League and the European Super Cup and the Intercontinental Cup in a single year. Barca did it in 2009. Bayern did it in 2020. PSG now on that list. Let's go to Major League Soccer, and they are laying the groundwork for their biggest structural shift in decades. Reporting from Tom Bogert and Paul Tenorio of The Athletic, the 5-division format beginning in 2027. Alongside the calendar flip is in motion. The proposed divisions are about, as best you can, travel equity and scheduling efficiency. You play everybody in your 6-team division, home and away. That's 10 games. And then you play everybody else in the league. That's 24 teams once, home or away, and you flip each year. Atlanta United would end up in a southeastern group with Miami, with Orlando, with Charlotte, with Nashville, and with DC United. And that's where it gets a little interesting, because to get 6-team groups, you have to stretch a little bit. You weren't going to go and pull one of the Texas teams. You end up going to DC. That pulls DC away from some historic rivalries with Philadelphia, with Red Bulls. San Jose would not be with the California teams. They would go up with the Cascadia teams and then into the Midwest. You just don't have a way to evenly divide it up that is perfect. Every league, every conference move, every division move, you always have these challenges where there's somebody who is the odd one out. And it looks like San Jose would be the oddest one out. Maybe you could put DC into that category as well. It makes sense, and it's really just for scheduling purposes. It's a shame that DC wouldn't play Red Bulls twice, for example. It's a shame San Jose wouldn't play the Galaxy twice, for example. But that's where the league is right now. Now, if they continue to expand and go to 32 teams, then it's a whole different conversation. We get there when we get there. But all of it is a good move for MLS in the long run, in my opinion. I do like that you would play everybody every year at least once, and that gives you just a better feel for the season, in my opinion, a better feel for seeing all the teams, a better feel for uniting the league. Right now, I feel very disconnected from the Western Conference, for example, because we just don't see those teams very much. I like where it's going. I think this is the best way you can make it go forward, the proposed divisional groupings. I know there's going to be some people who don't like it, but it's impossible to make everybody happy with this. Excited to see this continue to grow. Some other quick hits before we wrap. The SuperDraft is today. DC's got the top pick. Atlanta's got the second. You had some Generation Adidas signings, including Georgia Southern's Ricky Lewis, a forward that we had a chance to see quite a bit. Curious to see if he plays as a wide player in MLS or as a 9. Really talented, really explosive. I want to see more from him against top-level competition because I want to see how he translates to the next level. We'll keep you posted on our social media accounts at Soccer Down Here about what Atlanta United does in the draft. Stay tuned on that one. Miami, they are nearing a deal for Canadian national team goalkeeper Dane St. Clair, the reigning MLS goalkeeper of the year. Sounds like he turned down a 7-figure contract offer from Minnesota to go to Miami. Luis Suarez has signed a new deal with Inter Miami. We'll see what kind of minutes he gets next year. And a quick word on Wilfried Nancy at Celtic. I watched the game yesterday. Celtic lost their 4th in a row. They haven't lost 4 in a row since 1978. The noise is obscene at the moment in Scotland about Wilfried Nancy, and people are very loud, and many of the people who are the loudest, and whether this is fans or pundits, are completely missing the point. And so many of them are blinded by their disrespect of Major League Soccer. If Wilfried Nancy had come from another league, a European league, that they rate, he'd be treated differently. And it's a shame. And look, it's not purely about MLS because Ronnie Deila got some of this treatment as well in Scotland when he won more, frankly. But when you drop Wilfried Nancy in, and I said this before about the board decision to put him in when they did, the transition from Martin O'Neill to Wilfried Nancy, I think Martin O'Neill should have done more. The board definitely should have done more. You set him up to fail, and it has been failing. But watch that game yesterday. Go back and really watch it. Take off the green glasses for a minute and watch that match. The decision-making from Celtic players in the second half, especially when they were put under stress of falling behind, terrible. The first touch from many players, terrible. The finishing inside the 18 with golden chances being created, terrible. Not putting the game away in the first half, terrible. That's not on the manager. That's on the quality of players that you have. That's on the recruitment of those players. This team's not very good. And Wilfried Nancy is going to ask them to play soccer. Not sit back and defend and just hoof the ball long and hope to go fight, win, that kind of nonsense. He's trying to have them play. That's why he was brought in. They need a style of play. They need something they can fall back on because you can't always just out-talent people, even in Scotland at this point, where Celtic can outspend everybody by a lot. Well, you don't have the players to play right now. And that's a shame because Wilfried Nancy's reputation's taken a major hit, and it's not on him, but he's going to pay the price at the way this is going. They play Aberdeen on the weekend, and we'll see where this goes. There's no telling where this goes at this point. Final whistle before we wrap up. Make sure you check out our features yesterday on Jose Silva, the new head coach of Atlanta United 2. He's right in the middle of the club's development pathway, shaping players, ideas, identity every day. I had a great conversation with him. You can listen to that on our podcast feed. You can read the article at soccerdownhere.net. I love where his head is in terms of philosophy and how he's developed as a manager and how he sees Atlanta United 2's place in that long-term vision. You will be able to go check that out. Again, the podcast, the conversation with him that I had is on our podcast feed, and the written article is up at soccerdownhere.net. SuperDraft.net. That's it for Morning Espresso for today. I'll be back tomorrow with a little bit more. Enjoy the Supercoppa Italia. Enjoy some UEFA Conference League action. All kinds of stuff going on. We will break it all down for you tomorrow on a new edition of the Morning Espresso presented by Oglethorpe University.